Okay. Now, Ian Whyte from Whyte's Auctioneers has joined us. And believe it or not, right, last weekend, one lucky Irish person sold a Chinese vase at a leash auction in just 7 minutes for 740,000. Isn't that the dream, that you find some priceless artefact up in the attic? And the guide price in this was 800 to 1,200. So there you go. Now, Ian, Oriental porcelain is not your speciality, but just why did this particular vase fetch so much?
It came from a very rare period. In fact, the auctioneers disingenuously described it as Qing Dynasty, and the Qing Dynasty went from 1636 to 1912, so it was 400 years. But it was actually recognised by the collectors, Chinese collectors, as being from a Qin Long period, which is only a period of about 30 years. In the 1730s to 1760s, I think it is. Very popular period, apparently, for Chinese collectors. And it's also an imperial part of the imperial China porcelain. These are factories that were owned by the emperor, controlled by the emperor, and only made the best quality porcelain for the emperor's palaces all over China. Now, a lot of these were looted by the British, and we were included in that
right.
at the time, because of course a lot of Irish people would have joined the military. They would have been civil servants in the British Empire. The British were always mucking around in China, and a lot of this stuff was looted in the 1860s in the China Wars, and also in the Boxer Rebellion in 1900. So a lot of these things were brought back. Some of them might have been purchased, mind you. We also have missionaries, of course, in these areas too, and they would have been given presents and that. So is
there a lot of this stuff scattered around Ireland?
There would be around Ireland and Britain, yeah, quite a bit. And it's the shepherds, who did very well last week in Laois, have made a niche for themselves, because they discovered, I think a couple of years ago, they got a tea chest literally full of porcelain from an old house down there, and I think they made about 2 million out of it.
Wow.
So the stuff is there to be found. There was not every piece of blue and white china with made in China stamped on it. Forget that stuff. Okay. It has to have a particular mark, and it's hard to describe the marks here. You can get books on them, or you can look it up on Google it. But there's particular marks to look out for, and they will tell you exactly when the piece was made, who made it, where it was made, etc. Of course, those can be forged as well, so you have to watch out. It's a whole minefield, but it's a very profitable minefield for some collectors.
And the Chinese are buying this stuff back?
The Chinese are buying it back, yeah. It's a bit like when, during the Celtic Tiger period, we had the example for 15 years, we had a lot of wealthy Irish people buying back art and antiques that had been sold to Americans back in the 30s and 40s, or to English people as well. And I often flew across to America to bring back paintings. In fact, some of those paintings now, during the recession, we sold them back to the Americans.
Yes.
So we're getting air miles on some of them,
Yeah, sold them back to the Americans for a lot less, I'd imagine.
A bit like, but we're actually, funny enough, we're now getting a few of them back, so which is a good sign.
Oh God, that's worrying, isn't it? Listen, what else do people... So everyone's thinking, okay, I'm straight up to the attic now. Absolutely, what else might people have in the house that could be worth
They could
money?
have, I mean, obviously... Coming across something like those Chinese things is like, it's actually scarcer than winning the lotto. But there are things worth looking for. Things are put away in the attic because they no longer, you can no longer use the good Belique tea set that your great grandmother had back in the 1890s or whatever. It doesn't go in the dishwasher, it doesn't go in the microwave, so it's stored away. Those can be worth 1,000 to 4,000, but it has to be those early 1890, 1910 period. Old glass from the 19th century, maybe. Your granddad's medals from the war or whatever, whether they're
of course, military stuff.
Military is very popular. And practically everybody has a grandfather or great grandfather who served in either the First World War or the 1916 Rising, depending on where they were. And some of those medals can be quite valuable.
Is the 1916 stuff still
quite hot? Yeah, I mean, there were 2,500 medals given to the lads who went out, or a lot of the lads and gals, I should say, coming among got them as well. And those medals can vary from a 1916 medal can vary from 2,000 to 100,000. The 100,000 was for Tom Clark's medal. But
okay. You say old photographs as well can be valuable.
Yes, photography is a growing collectible, and it's not just very, very early early photographs from Ireland from the 1850s, 1860s, extremely rare and can fetch thousands.
Really?
But, they can. I mean, the photography.
Do they need to be of something significant, or
anything in the early period? Any photograph from the 1840s, 1860s, when photography started, especially Irish ones, will be rare, and France and Britain as well. But also, it's worth looking through the old family albums, because sometimes you'll come across something where they're mostly pictures of the family, no interest to many collectors, but occasionally they might have gone to some parade, or they were involved in an event and they took some photographs themselves. Could have been during the 1916 Rising, it could have been at a football match or something like that, or some event that happened. Maybe there was a big accident happened, and like today we all have our iPhones, but in those days people carried around cameras, so they could be interesting. So they're worth looking at, and if they find anything unusual, bring them to a dealer or an auctioneer who'll have a deco at them. And some of these, we've had photographs. I remember there was a photograph of a railway accident down in Wexford where a train had derailed, and they had all these photos. Somebody local went out, snapped the whole thing, and I think we got about £500 or £600 pounds for it a number of years ago.
And rock and pop memorabilia is a great market.
Yes,
now,
that's a huge international market now, and of course it's the usual thing. It's the dead rock stars. It helps if you have R.I.P. after your name, but Elvis obviously is a big draw. You'll get at least €1,000 for his signature on something. The Beatles, of course, because they're not around anymore. We had a lady, she was a retired Aer Lingus hostess, and she was very clever. She on the flight over from London to Dublin, the Beatles, in those days you used to get a menu, by the way, on an Aer Lingus plane.
Okay.
And so she got them to sign the menu, and I think we got 4,000 or 5,000 for that. So things like that are, many collectors are big fans of pop and rock stars, wrote to them. And often they got letters back in the 50s and 60s, which was good. I think the Irish had a way of writing to them that they would always get a letter back, rather than the usual secretary's note and here's a photo, good luck.
Yeah, right. Unusual stuff is also good, I gather.
Yeah, the more unusual, the better. Hard to say. We had a man came in with he actually worked out in Papua New Guinea, and he came to one of our valuation days in Galway, and he had a collection of artefacts from a group of cannibals who were still. A tribe of cannibals who were still around the 60s when he was out helping a mining company, and he had poison-tipped arrows and all sorts of stuff. And again, we got a few £100 for them, which is good.
For any curiosity, like that.
It depends on where your family, what they've been up to. We had another chap came in with his father's diving outfit. And it was one of the old-fashioned ones, the brass helmet and the whole weighted down. He worked for the Dublin Port and Docks Board, and he used to have to go down and find stuff and clear the channels and stuff in the Liffey and around the docks. I think it made about €12,000. So there you go. It's worth looking for, even ordering things like that. Yeah.
Coins. Lots of people have boxes of old coins at home, but, and we kind of generally assume they're worthless.
Yeah. Obviously the gold and silver, gold coins for a start. Silver coin, most white metal coins, if you want to call it that, before 1945 have a silver content in them. So that's a start. When people ring up and they have bucks coins, they say, well, okay, just show me the coins from 1945 backwards, the silver ones. The copper and brass, forget those, because they'll be worth very, very little unless they're before 1800. Occasionally, now somebody brought in a Viking coin that their grandfather found years and years ago, and it was a quite rare one of King Sitrick in Dublin. 1,000 years old, more than 1,000 years old. It fetched £2,500 at the time. Chap who brought it back to us about 10 years later. We got him 12,000 for it. So things like. By the way, if you dig up things, I have to warn you about this. If you dig up coins or things like that in your back garden or wherever, you have to go to the National Museum first with them. There's a National Monuments Act, which is quite draconian.
I see, even if it's your own garden.
Even in your own garden.
Okay, so you might forget that you dug that up in your own garden.
Not a few old bones of a dead dog or something. If it's a few coins, bring them into the National Museum and they'll have a look at them, and if they're interested, they'll buy them off you.
Okay, can I ask you briefly, just give us a few tips for regular punters like us going to, say, even a house auction or auctions or that kind of thing, where you feel that everyone else knows what's going on, you have maybe have your eye on something, but you feel you're getting rings run around you by people.
Yeah, well, auctions are great fun, and being an auctioneer, I encourage people to go to them. Have a look at the object. You really like it. Check the condition. Have a look at it sideways, upways, and all that. If it's an internet sale, ask for extra photographs or condition report if you can. Have a look at it. Decide in your mind. Talk to the auctioneer. The auctioneers will usually give you the SP, as they call it, and they'll say, "Well, we have estimated at €50 to €70, but there is a bit of demand. We think it might go a bit more." Or they might say, "There's nobody on it at the moment, so have a go." And decide in your own mind your limit that you're going to go to. So you say to them, "Well, I like it. I love it. They've said 50, 70. I think I might pay 100 for it." That's your fix, and don't go beyond that.
Because there is a great adrenaline buzz. You can get carried away.
If you see it going more than that, and you see two fellas having a ding dong, leave them to it, because they actually know more than you.
Yeah,
and
right.
And that's it. Also remember too, there's fees on top and stuff like that. So if you buy somewhere €100, it might be €120 by the time you pay VAT and commission and all that as well.
Okay.